we're on a roll. I think this is the third out of the 5 bodies that I'm speaking to today. So today of the 5, I'm expanding on the emotional body. Understanding these 5 bodies just opens us up to potential life mastery and a deeper sense of connection and connection of self. The emotional body in particular, our emotions, our feelings, this enriches our capacity for fullness and aliveness, having a felt experience of actually being alive. It also, when we're open and have an understanding of our feelings and emotions, opens us up to greater wisdom, greater decision making, and also ability for healing and self-healing and having impact on the physical body as well. It gives us deeper sensitivity and awareness of how we operate in this life. I love doing this particular body because, look, to be honest, out of all of the bodies, this one I have probably spoken to and highlighted the most in all of the videos that I've conducted in the Joyflu group. So I'm not going to go as deep as what I potentially could on this particular body because I've got already so many resources available. You can head to the guides. There's a particular section called Feeling Feelings. I did a Feeling Feelings challenge. I think it was back in like 2018 or 2019, and it's got a lot in there. Okay, however, there's still going to be a fair amount that I'll cover off at a more generalized level. I've also loaded all of the Joyflu lives onto YouTube. I've posted the link in this group. I like YouTube in that it allows you to also create playlists. So similarly to the guides, all of the videos will be linked through on the Feeling Feelings challenge in the YouTube group, which I will pop the link in once this is done. So we've covered off the intellectual body and we've covered off the physical body. Now we're moving into the emotional body. So our emotions, our feelings. Now a lot of people use those words interchangeably, thinking that they're the same thing. And by definition, they are. A body of work that I highly subscribe to, Clinton Callahan's works. He has separated the two, okay? And feelings being the sensations that we experience in our body when we feel a particular way, versus emotions, where emotions are trapped or repressed or unprocessed feelings that didn't get fully expressed at the time of the situation that was causing the particular feeling. Okay, so if something happened that maybe we got angry or really upset, but it wasn't appropriate or it wasn't allowed at the time to fully express that feeling, then very often it becomes an emotion. So it's still in our system, okay? And look, with so many different bodies of work, and scientifically, showing that stress is bad for our system. We know fundamentally that feelings, if are not processed appropriately, do have longer term implications and can cause problems in the physical body later on. Okay, let me just check. Things making noise. Okay, so quite often when we talk about feelings, we do refer to the heart center, and in terms of the embraining body of work, the heart is the emotional center for the body. Although when it comes to actually feeling our feelings, it's not always explicitly in the heart that it is felt. Okay, so there is the physical component to our feelings. Okay, very often when I'm working with people, I'll ask them how they're feeling, and they'll respond with, "Oh, I think I feel a bit sad today." And it's like, okay, what you've done there is that the mind has actually mentally decided that we're feeling that way, okay, because we have the thinking component in there. Okay, what many of us do, and I subscribe myself included in this, is that we often don't actually feel our feelings. Okay, so actually doing a scan of the body and noticing what are the physical sensations, what are the indicators that I'm actually having this feeling, and allowing it to be a felt thing, as opposed to me mentally deciding, oh, I'm a bit sad today. Okay, so let me do this now. It's actually taking the time and become consciously aware about what is going on in the body that I am feeling. Okay, so okay, so I'm getting, it's not tightness, that would be too far along the trajectory, but it's like just a felt sensation around here. Now, okay, so nerves, effectively, so you know, a derivative of fear. So I'm just dropping in and scanning it a bit deeper. There is a level of excitement as well. Fear and excitement are very tightly joined and linked feelings. Yeah, it's a topic that I really love and enjoy. So, you know, I felt what's going on in my body, then I'm popping up to my head and I'm getting the story of why I'm having that particular feeling. Joy, or the excitement, is quite a heart one, and there's also a little bit of, it's very, very subtle, kind of like bubbling in the lower center, so in the gut, solar plexus region. Again, that's just that little mix of nerves, you know, speaking in this forum. Okay, so sometimes we do have the capacity to check in with our feelings without sort of, you know, having to block out everything. However, to really feel our feelings is actually developing as a skill set. So when I talked about the intellectual body, we're very much in a culture that gives the head a lot of prominence, and quite often we suppress, ignore, distract ourselves, get away from the feelings and the intensity of it. For a lot of us who, you know, if this work or any of these ideas are new to us, is that there's probably a lot of trapped emotion, for the most part, because, you know, we've decided to operate from the head. So I think for me, my feelings journey, I realized sort of, you know, probably around 2014, 2015, my severe disconnect and my inability to feel. So there's a lot of numbness. And what then transpired is like, okay, so I want to be more feelings run. I want the aliveness and the fullness and the greater ability to tap into the emotional body and benefit from its wisdom. However, due to, you know, over 30 years of suppressing emotions, ignoring them, is basically, there's been, you know, years of tidy up work to deal with the emotions, the trapped feelings that never got expressed. And again, it's not that all that's done, okay? There's always ongoing tidy up. However, these days I'm very much very tapped into my feelings, very open and capable of doing the tidy up work of, you know, when things do come out, that it's like, okay, this doesn't feel a measured response to what's happening right now, so therefore it's more than likely some emotional work that needs to be tidied up, and being able to do that for myself in the moment when it happens has been so beneficial. Okay, so if this is something new, as I said, I highly recommend going and looking at the Feelings channel challenge. There's so much information in there that speaks to this. It was done a few years ago, and some of my perspectives and awarenesses or knowledge has probably deepened. Not so much changed, but more so deepened. I don't think there's too much that I would go back and say, you know what, I was wrong there. My perspective is totally flipped and changed, but there is always that potential with ongoing learning. So, as I said, just taking that time, developing that awareness and going, okay, how does this feel in my body? What's going on? Is there tightness? Is there density? Is there, you know, total numbness? Am I not feeling anything at all? For me, as I said, I need to take a time and a moment to do that check-in. It's not immediately obvious. Sometimes it is. It depends what's going on. But right now, in this moment, I need to take a moment to figure out what's going on in my feeling body. Okay, what is the sensations that I am experiencing? Okay, again, Clinton Callahan's work I enjoy because it really simplifies the feelings perspective, and his perspective is that we're always at any point in time feeling anger, sadness, fear and joy, just at varying degrees. So another nice way to start to develop and strengthen our awareness is to just do a check-in on those particular four and ask myself, okay, right now, how much anger am I feeling? Okay, so intuitively I'm getting 30%. Okay, then I can dig deeper and actually go, well, what physical sensation is supporting me in that 30% that I'm feeling of anger in my body? Okay, now anger at a 30% level, anger is a big driver of momentum and taking action. So I actually need a little bit of that anger in my body to get me to have the motivation and the ability to sit down and deliver this live. Okay, so that's largely what makes up that particular 30%. Sadness in my body, it's actually about 50%. I bumped into one of my neighbours this morning. She's had a work colleague who's just recently died suddenly over the weekend, and we were having a conversation about that. The lady was in her 40s, so you know that's brought about some sadness and some feelings around that. And sadness is one that I'm quite strongly tapped into. So like instantly the awareness, and there's just this slight pressure in my heart space. So you know, the heart definitely is a big player in the emotional body. It's just we're not always just limited to the sensation being felt in the heart. It's definitely going to be in other places of the body, and not limited to just feeling it in the heart. Fear. Okay, so 40%. yeah, again, just the nervousness, the am I doing this right? Am I explaining myself correctly? As I said, I didn't want to go into too much detail because I could speak to feelings and emotions for probably 3 days straight and not even cover it all. So yeah, it's about 60%. And definitely the gut, and just as I acknowledged and felt it, there was also a release down in the anus area, so the perineum. It's a full body experience with this one, and joy. I love that joy is actually on Clinton Callahan's model, being the joy scientist, of course, and yeah, right now it's 80%. Yeah, I explain it's very subtle, but it's almost like there's a fizzy drink on the inside, so just little bubblings. In the last few months, my ability to feel joy has really deepened and strengthened, and it's been actually very intense to hold a higher level of joy in my system, in my body, and so that's been really fascinating. So I've been tapping into the womb center, tapping into feelings of pleasure more, which is enhance my sensitivity, and I've had to, and still am, developing greater capacity to hold more intensity in my body. It was a little bit unexpected, and also acknowledging that. Also, there was then waves of grief in acknowledging that my past ability to hold levels of joy were actually a lot more limited than what my understanding was. So yeah, for many of us, when we're starting out, we're often dealing with a high level of numbness, okay, and we're also dealing with a lesser ability to hold high level of intensities in the body. So ultimately what our goal is with our feelings, with our emotions, is to let them be fully expressed. Now this can be quite scary. As I said, society-wise, we're all operating from the head base. That feeling stuff, it's like, oh, we don't do that in public, or, you know, quite often we're a little bit judgmental or turned off, or a little bit frightened by people when they're in full expression of feelings. It doesn't have to always be what we think it's going to be. Again, in the videos I've spoken to lots of different methods that we can use to express those feelings and let them run through our system. I've been playing with a little bit of artwork of late for a particular project, and it's a highly emotive based project. So and being okay and non-judgmental and fully just curious and compassionate about what feelings arise. These days I do a lot of not necessarily poems, but you know, using words as an expression, journaling, and just letting whatever reflections are coming through, allowing it to be expressed in words. And I often will share pieces of that in this particular group, or through other channels. Some of it I don't share, actually. A lot of it I don't share, but there'll be pieces every now and then that I do, and there's a vulnerability with sharing that, because there's, you know, who am I to share these expressions that I have coming through. but there's more often than not, quite a deep wisdom that is coming from. So there's healing in the expression, and then there's the new levels of awareness and wisdom that we are then able to tap into that can help with decision making, with guiding us to our decisions, what things, how do I want to spend my time, what's important, what do I feel I need to be doing right now. Yeah, it opens up a lot of opportunity available to us, tapping into enriching our lives. For me personally, someone that's very logical minded, very problem solving, from the head-based center, is that tapping in and allowing my feelings to come online has enhanced my life a millionfold. And there's certainly been no regrets in tapping into that space. It's not easy. Quite often there's a lot of deep, unprocessed emotion that has to come through, and sometimes that can take a couple of days, sometimes longer, depending on the situation. And sometimes the knowledge and the wisdom that comes from that processing is a bit hard hitting, it's a bit confrontational. More often than not, there's some level of trauma involved in what initially happened that caused the trapped feelings in the body. Okay. Alright, I will post the links. As I said, I was never going to be able to speak to this emotional body in its fullest capacity just in a short time. However, as I said, this is just an area that's just been ongoing and continues to enhance my life, and to deepen my awareness and connection, and enhance my capacity to store greater levels of intensity. Once we sort of open these up and have the capacity to feel for ourselves, is that we then become greater in our ability to support others in their feelings. That's a topic for another time as well. However, important. Very, very, very important, particularly anyone who is in a role that you are supporting other people, is having our own ability to hold the intensity of not just ourselves but for others as well. Thank you for listening, and yours in joy and out. Have a great day.